There comes a stage in the inner life where a seeker begins to recognize that spiritual growth is not achieved through extremes, denial, or force, but through balance, rhythm, and intelligent cooperation with nature itself. The ancient traditions never asked human beings to mutilate life in the name of holiness. Instead, they asked us to understand life. When spiritual effort becomes fanatical, when one quality is exaggerated at the expense of the whole, the result is not enlightenment, but distortion. Nature does not grow in jerks or sudden leaps. It unfolds symmetrically, gradually, and intelligently, and the human soul is no exception. True wisdom does not come from violent renunciation or dramatic sacrifice performed for recognition. It arises quietly through consistency, integrity, and inner alignment. A person may desire goodness, yet still be ruled by inner conflict. Virtue is not something we pretend toward. It is something that emerges naturally once opposing impulses are reconciled. Many speak of sacrifice as though deprivation itself were holy, yet sacrifice without understanding has little value. Only that which is given freely, without self-inflation, carries spiritual weight. Growth is not achieved by crushing parts of ourselves, but by integrating them. The Hermetic tradition teaches that spiritual development must be symmetrical. Just as the body must grow evenly to remain healthy, the soul must develop without exaggeration. Fanaticism, pride, and rigid moralism are not signs of advancement. They are symptoms of imbalance. One is not asked to abandon joy, laughter, or human feeling in order to become spiritual. On the contrary, a mature spiritual life includes the full range of human expression, joy and sorrow, strength and tenderness woven together by conscience and awareness. Each day becomes an act of quiet construction, building character brick by brick, rather than chasing dramatic transformation. At the heart of this teaching lies the principle of polarity. The Hermetic marriage is not merely a metaphor for romantic union. It is a universal law operating throughout nature. Every force expresses itself through complementary opposites, positive and negative, active and receptive, masculine and feminine. Electricity itself depends on polarity to function. Spirit, although whole in itself, expresses through polarity in order to manifest. The great work is not the elimination of one pole, but their conscious cooperation. In the human being, this law expresses psychologically and spiritually. Each person contains both masculine and feminine principles, regardless of biological sex. One aspect tends to lead, the other to receive, but neither is superior. The idea that one sex, one temperament, or one mode of consciousness is inherently higher than the other is an illusion born of misunderstanding polarity. Wholeness does not come from domination, but from harmony. Marriage, in its deeper sense, exists to serve two fundamental purposes. The first is biological, the continuation of the species through polarity in reproduction. The second is spiritual, the mutual refinement of consciousness through prolonged association. Two individuals gradually influence one another, often unconsciously, absorbing each other's viewpoints, emotional patterns, and inner attitudes. The sharpness of one mind is softened by the warmth of the other. Emotional sensitivity gains stability through contact with practical reason. Each partner becomes less one-sided through relationship, if the union is conscious. When this purpose is forgotten, relationship deteriorates into conflict, possession, and fragmentation. Modern culture has largely lost the original intention of union, replacing cooperation with competition and selfish gratification. The result is imbalance not only in relationships, but in the psyche of humanity itself. Without harmony between inner opposites, life becomes driven by excess desire, excess fear, excess stimulation, while the deeper meaning of connection is obscured. The ancient ideal was not the annihilation of individuality, but its fulfillment. Through balance, in time, the Hermetic traditions foresaw the return of the androgynous human not as a physical anomaly, but as a psychological and spiritual achievement. This refers to the individual who has reconciled inner opposites and no longer lives torn between extremes. Such a person is whole, internally aligned, and therefore capable of authentic relationship with others. Symbolically, this integration has been represented in many traditions. The two-headed figure described in alchemical and philosophical imagery represents the dual powers governing human consciousness, reason and intuition, logic and imagination, authority and compassion. These dual forces govern not only the individual, but society itself, appearing as leadership and service, law and mercy. When united, they form the priest-king archetype, wisdom expressed through responsibility. The same symbolism appears in religious imagery: the paired cherubim, the dual stones on the high priest's garment, the triadic structure of father, mother, and child. The child in this sense is not merely physical offspring, but the living result of harmony between polar forces. A person's life inevitably reflects the inner union or division of their parents, both biologically and psychologically. Individual completeness, according to the Hermetic teaching, is the true goal of spiritual effort. The philosopher's stone, the rose diamond, the hidden pearl all symbolize the same attainment, the restoration of inner unity. Everything encountered in life becomes a tool for this work. Challenges are not punishments. They are refining agents. Relationships, rather than distractions, become vehicles through which the soul expresses and evolves. When a person is internally aligned, outer chaos loses its power. The world may appear confused, yet the individual who is in harmony with themselves can perceive an underlying order moving steadily toward balance. Such a person no longer reacts blindly to appearances, but learns to recognize the deeper intelligence shaping events. The infinite reveals itself gradually to those who are adjusted within. The Hermetic marriage ultimately represents the redemption of human relationships themselves. It is the transmutation of distorted desire into conscious union, of selfishness into cooperation, of fragmentation into wholeness. The task of our time is not to escape the world, but to restore dignity to human connection, to cleanse it of deception, excess, and misuse, and to return it to its rightful place as a sacred instrument of growth. This teaching does not promise perfection overnight. It calls for reflection, responsibility, and maturity. The individual who undertakes this work must confront themselves honestly, relinquish illusions, and accept that true mastery begins within. But in doing so, they participate in something far greater than personal fulfillment: the gradual healing of the human soul. If something in this teaching resonates with you, if you feel the quiet recognition that your path is not about becoming someone new, but about reconciling what already lives within you, then this work is not abstract. It is personal. The Hermetic marriage is not a concept. It is a lived process. If you feel called to explore this integration more deeply through conscious self-inquiry, symbolic understanding, or guided reflection, I invite you to connect with me. Whether through a one-to-one session, deeper teachings, or the written work I share, this path is meant to be walked with clarity and support. Share this reflection if it stirred something in you. Leave a comment with what stood out, and allow the conversation to continue, because inner harmony is not just personal healing. It is how the world slowly remembers itself.